I wouldn't do it. And I found myself a couple years later playing basketball at lunch. And I had a personal friend, a successful guy. He was in my wedding, far more successful than I was at this time. And so he was a mentor in that context. He called me. We went to lunch. He said, get out of here. You got to get out of here. You're going to become one of them. There's no future. There's no joy to it. There's no accomplishment to it. There'll be no real satisfaction to it. Get out of there. All right? Being on staff at a state university is not something you want to do. And so he saw me starting to adapt the environment, and I was going to lose my way. I'll always be grateful for him for that. Yes. I postponed decisions, this is another one, until they were no longer mine to make. That can be applied to health. That could be applied to all kinds of things in opportunity. It can be applied to the military, Brett, right? I postponed decisions until they were no longer mine to make. In that case, the enemy took it away from you. Here we go. This ties back to losing courage. And I let comfort define my limits without questioning it. I'm talking to all of you. You are all entrepreneurs. We have 111 entrepreneurs on here. Right? You can't let comfort define your limits. You can't accomplish anything really special with that. Okay. Another one that I've been very careful of, and I've warned lots of other people about this, I underestimated how much my daily circle, that means the people you hang with, talk to on a daily basis, the people that have the most influence, their thinking, their reflections, all of that stuff. I let my daily circle, I forgot, right? I underestimated how much that was going to shape my future. So I've always reached up, you guys. I reach up, I reach up, I reach up, I reach up, I reach up. When I was playing tennis, I would work out occasionally with guys that were steady players, but I wanted to play against guys who beat me. It sounds like self-abuse. But I learned the game fighting guys that were bigger, stronger, and faster than I was. And what could I do to mitigate some of those advantages? So I actually, I was more diligent in my conditioning. I learned to play a better game of defense. I really learned the percentages, this kind of stuff. I learned patience when a lot of those guys were impatient, and I'd outlast them. Now, ultimately, talent and hard work, someone who worked as hard as me, did all those same things and had more talent, beat me, right? And that's where I had to understand my genetic limitations. But in business, genetic limitations don't count. It's all about how much mental toughness can you develop? How focused can you be? I looked at guys early on that were so much more talented. They were better looking, they were taller, they were more impressive, they had more charisma, and then all this stuff. And all those guys are in my rearview mirror. I just outfocus the SOBs. It's kind of like, what's the number one goal in tennis? Hit the ball over the net. That's the number one goal. So I found out if I hit the ball over the net more often than they did, they lost. See, I'm uncomplicated. I told you I was shallow. Anyway, so we're good with that. Next one. This is one, and I want the sisters of the family to be listening to this one. I kept trying to fix situations that needed an exit, not more effort. You end up in relationships you shouldn't end up in. I remember talking to someone on this team several years ago about a relationship and saying, I'm not judging either one, but I don't understand that person, you wish they were something they're not going to be. And if you don't learn to let that go, you're going to continue to make yourself miserable and damage your future. right? And so there are times, where you just need to stop talking to somebody and let it go. And I know some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Here's one I've got to pay attention to this moment. I treated time as renewable until it clearly wasn't. I have really stepped, look, those who've been exposed to me for any length of time know I dote on my wife. I worship the ground she walks on. That's more true now than ever because I almost lost her. And I just felt that so deeply, right? And prayed so earnestly. As I've said in podcasts, and I don't know if I've said it in front of you, but the hardest time, I say my prayers and then I say and mean, thy will be done. Because I trust in God. I know he wants what's best for me. And I was praying for my wife's well-being, that she would live. And the hardest words I'd ever said in my life were, nonetheless, not my will, but thine be done. But as long as I got you on the phone, man, I hope, that's where I was at. I knew I had to accept it if that was his will. But I was going to do everything I could that was up to me to preserve my sweetheart's life. So, time's not renewable, you guys. It's finite. Every once in a while, you should look at what the average lifespan is for someone from your age right now, what the average lifespan is. Then break it down. Take a look at that number of years, break it down into months, and break it down into weeks. And it's not as much as you think it is. And I think that's a good wake-up call. I know this is going to sound weird, but I like visiting cemeteries. I don't do it compulsively. I don't do it every week. But I visited my parents' graves here last week before, end of the week before. And then I walked around the cemetery. It's a cemetery that's been there a long time. There are people that passed in the early 1800s, and I look at things and reflect on things. I look at a family plot, that hasn't had anybody buried in a long time. The family's gone, where they lost 6 children before the children were 2 years old. And you go, how do you live with that? But I walk around, I look at those things, count my blessings, acknowledge that I'm alive, but as I am, they once were, as they are, I will become. And I think that's a healthy reflection. Now, dang it, I'm screwing up my image and my brand here because that sounds pretty deep. And I apologize for that. This might be the one area where I have a little bit of depth to me. This reflection that life is finite and it's precious and time is not like money, right? You can keep making more money. I can keep buying more cars. I can buy more land, all that kind of stuff, but I can't buy more time. I can live right? I can, the big 3, nourishment, right? Good nutrition, exercise, adequate rest. I keep doing those things. Cindy helps me with that. But at the end of the day, it only goes so far. We're mortal. Our bodies are mortal. So time is not renewable. So have more urgency. Get more done in a shorter period of time. Right? Pour it on. Don't let comfort define you, like we already talked about. Here's another one you got to be careful of. All you listen to me, this is for our entrepreneurs. I ignored the cost of inaction because it wasn't immediate. It's kind of like, why do people not save money? They just don't want to think about the future, so they don't save money. So what do they waste? The most valuable thing of all. What is it? Time. Because compound interest needs time. The more time you give it, the more powerful it is. But we are there to solve that problem for people financially. I ignored the cost of inaction because it wasn't immediate. The problem's going to hit me at 65 or 70 or 73 or 76 or whatever it is. And then it's devastating. There's no recourse. But anyway, thoughts. Now we're going to shift to money. This is a subject of mine, some reflections I want to share. I'm grateful for all the things people say and post and stuff when I'm researching this stuff. Don't take credit for it, but I've lived it and I understand the truth when I hear it. So here's one. Making money is a skill. You guys, I am skilled today in making money. In our business model, in our industry, I'm one of the top earners in the world. And so it's a wonderful thing. But keeping money is not a skill, it's a discipline. I've seen so many people have the talent, the skill of making money, but not the skill of keeping money. My father made that impression. He never had much. He says it's easier to make it than it is to keep it, because there's so many temptations and distractions. And or you may be on a hot streak, you think it's going to stay that way. You look at athletes. Now they're getting NIL money, and then let's say they get to the pros and they get these contracts, and it just blows them up. It blows them up. They blow it all on bling and stuff. And then you hear about somebody who was a super talent as a janitor at a high school now. And it just, and because they didn't understand, right? We're not just working for money. Right? I make more, my money makes me more money than I make money. And I make a lot of money, but my money makes more money than that. And so you're not just working for money, you're looking to save it. I mentioned to you, get 10 million saved and invested, get a portfolio of at least 10 million, put that up on your board, start getting obsessed about it, start thinking about what it'd be like to have $10 million. Because the beautiful thing about $10 million at 6% is it makes you $600,000 a year, $50,000 a month, which isn't a fortune, but it provides. And most of you aren't making that now. But you don't think about money making money. You think, I want to make money, right? I would get this. I want my income up. I want the ring, all of that stuff. And what you need to have a vision of is who you're becoming. Investment-wise, savings-wise, because that's what you can control. Then you can flip the world off if you need to, because you're in control of your situation. And if somebody's trying to exercise control over you or mess with your life, you can handle it. That's happened to us a number of times in little things, like I walk into the school for my relatively young children. The eldest two are in high school, and we're taking some time. We're going to go to Europe. We're going to look at some things. We're going to stand in front of the Parthenon. We're going to the catacombs in Rome and look what the early Christians went through. We're going to stand in the Colosseum. We're going to do some stuff like that, right? And you go in, and I swear these people think you're asking permission. And I go, I need, for the next 2 weeks, I need what they're, for these 2 weeks, we're going to take children. We're going to travel. I need you to get the subjects they're going to be covering, their assignments, right? And we'll make sure they get those things done. And they go, Mr. Thawley, we'd prefer you not take your children out of school. I said, that's great. Isn't it wonderful what you prefer? But let me explain something. You know what my title is in a household? Husband and father. What's your title in my household? Nobody. Nobody. I'm not being rude, right? I wish you well. I hope you have a joyful life. But what you want doesn't matter to me. You're not in my family. We're going to go do this. You see, those kind of organizations always try and exercise control. So here's what I want you to do. Get the assignments. I wasn't asking for your permission. Seriously, you thought I was coming in here to ask your permission? We can take our family to Europe, right? You don't figure in this equation at all. Yeah, do we understand each other? She goes, yes. She goes, okay. We both end up laughing a little bit about it, but that's what happens. And you got to make sure. There was a time when I was taking my youngest son, who's 8.5 years younger than his next closest sibling, and he was becoming a good golfer. And this is his senior year. And he needed to have a great senior year to get a division, be able to play Division I school, which he did. And so we decided to put him, the top two players, him and his best friend, they're great players, and on independent study. Well, they don't like independent study because they don't make as much money when someone's on independent study from a tax basis, right? And so I go into the principal's office and say, I want to put my son on this boy on independent study. Oh, we'd prefer you not do that, but I don't rule on that. This person rules on it. And I proceeded to get the bureaucratic dance, the circle dance, where they ran me from this person, this person, this person. The last person, the fourth, after I'd talked to the principal, said, oh no, the principal calls that shot. And it's interesting, I showed up, right? He wasn't there. So I showed up the next day when the guy was there. Literally, he's in a meeting. I walk into his office. The assistant's trying to stop me, right? I go, hey, you gave me the circle, the runaround. You think we're getting this close to school that I'll give up? I'm never going to give up. I said, you jacked me around. Now I'll bring the pain. So just give me a little heads up. Here it comes, right? So I have my attorneys fire off a very well-worded letter to, the superintendent of schools, right? And said, I'm going to drop a load of bricks on the district, right? She called me, right, after that, and because the attorney said, you need to call Mr. Thawley. And this day she called me. I said, look, this can go one of two ways, but I want you to understand something. My son and this other boy are going to be an independent study, right? And you're going to help me do that now, right? Or I want you to know I have more resources than the school district does. I have more resources than the freaking county does. So what you need to do is just put my son in independent study. She said, I'm going to assign that to my... I said, okay, you're starting that thing again. No, this is the guy. He really does. That guy calls me the next morning and says, I'll have it worked out by tonight. I said, your choice is best friend or worst enemy. I'll be glad to support the district, contribute to things, or I can cost you millions. You get to pick. He says, I picked you being a friend. Good. We understand each other. And then they were on independent study. You guys, you understand, as you look at your life, you got to be in a financial position to defend your family. You got to know how to prioritize things. You got to know how to take care of your own. Part of that is mentality, right? That I'm willing to go after these guys for that. Cindy stays out of that. She goes, because she wants, she'll be nice, which is great. That handles 90% of it, maybe 95% of it. But every once in a while, you train the missiles, right? You say, look at your chest. See that dot? That's a laser from a laser sight. Do you want the big hole in the front or the back? Anyway, the point is that you need to be able to stand up for yourself. And you know what? Resources are an important part of that. And I could tell you 1,000 more stories, and I'm going to stop telling you stories on that one. So here we go. Your bank balance is more a reflection of your habits, not your dreams. You can have great dreams, but you need to build the right habits. I have a savings habit. A lot of you have a spending habit, right? My bank balance is because I broke the spending habit and built the savings habit, not because of my grand dreams or particular talent, right? What habit do you have? If you don't have the right one, start working on it. You don't have to start with large amounts. Start with small. Start working on it. I learned to read scripture every day by starting to read scripture once a week. And it built. Then it was easy to go to 2 times a week. Then it was easy to go to 3 times a week. And I wanted to. And then one day I was studying sometimes multiple times a day. Here's a thought. This is one for you to repeat to your team. Being broke is temporary. Staying broke is a choice. We built this company to give you a better choice. To not stay broke. To put yourself in control. Okay. This is something that reinforces a point I've already made. If you learn how to invest, you never fear losing a job. Once again, you're in control. You got resources, you got backed up, you got safety net, you got plenty of reserves. I remember when it hit me, it's my 4th year in the business. Cindy and I were reviewing our accomplishments for 84 and reviewing our goals that we'd already set for 85. We don't go out on New Year's Eve. We sit down and we spend that time doing those kinds of things. Now we do it with a family. And because too many drunk people on the road New Year's Eve, and so I don't like the odds. So I stay off of it. And but I also loved going through that process. And this is the time it hit me. The end of 1984, this thought hit me that night. And I grabbed my calculator and I took what I was earning annually and what Cindy was earning annually, added it together, and divided it into what we earned in 1984 from all sources. And imagine being in this situation. You know how many years at the previous income we'd had combined it was going to take to do what we had done for our family in 1 year? Ready? 98 years. 98 years. We'd almost had a century of advancement that year. That was dramatically impacted by our investments, plus our earnings, but it was also a reflection of how little we were making, and think about that. Richard Lopez, what would that feel like, right? If you, all of a sudden you had a year, a couple of years from now, and you look at it, taking us 98 years to have this same thing happen for our family. Mind-boggling. Here's another one. Wealth doesn't come from hard work. Lots of hardworking people don't get anywhere near wealth. So it's not enough. You need to work hard. But it comes from smart strategy.
You're muted, Rich.
Who muted me? Was it you, Stephanie, or Hannah?
It was Hannah.
Is that that wasn't very subliminal. Anyway. Okay, stop having fun with that. What do we get paid to do? Where do you make money? By solving problems. Going into a home and solving a problem. You make more money from solving problems than you do from the hours that you work. Now, if you work a lot of hours solving problems, really good things are going to happen for you. I mean, I go around this company individually, in teams, solving problems. Right, we're going to get back to work on this. We're doing some of this right now. And finally, rich people invest first, spend later. When we receive income from any source, we immediately turn around and invest. We simply take, how much of this can we send in? Can we send in 90% of it? Can we send in 95% of it? Can we send in all of it? We invest first, spend later. Poor people spend first, invest never. You understand that? You got to reflect on that with people. That'd be worthy of a comment in a BPM, right? People who become well off, who become wealthy, invest first, spend later. People who are poor, spend first, invest never. So that's why I want you to have up there. Let's get your first 5 million saved. Let's get 10 million saved. That's going to be compounding. It won't be just because of what you saved out of your monthly thing. With the compounding, the investment rate of return, all these kinds of things. And we've got the vehicles and the tools for you to do that. Do it. Do it. All right.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday. You guys have no actually my favorite days of the week. And I'm excited to talk about something, guys, because there's a lot happening on the back end that I'm not sharing, but I feel like it's important to talk about.
So who is that?
You're muted.
Someone is having their own meeting. Sounded good though. Sounded like a recording actually. So reflection. Hannah, have you gathered any questions? You or Darlene?
I have.
Okay.
Okay, so this was kind of something that I discussed with some of my SMDs this morning. So what they really, wow, I hear the echoing all through the office. What they're really trying to figure out is obviously you're the best of the best. And obviously you built the biggest base shop, super base, super team hierarchy in the industry up to this point. And so their question is that what they're looking for is for you to kind of take them through, and you already really did this already. But
I don't mind the repetition.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Yeah. So they're like, okay, we know we're supposed to recruit, we know we're supposed to build, but we don't know exactly how to do it. Meaning the exact words to use if I'm at the gas station and there's someone pumping gas and I want to strike up a conversation. If, someone's within 3 feet, what do I actually say? What is the actual phone call after I get their phone number to get them on a call? What is the actual presentation that I do for them? And then what comes after they say yes? What are the actual pieces to the pie? So I know I got to recruit. I know I got to build. I get that, but they're really asking exactly how to do that. And again, I know you went through a lot of that, like ad nauseum, but they still have questions. So there's something that's still not connecting. And I think that they're right, because if they knew exactly what to say and what to do, they would do it.
Well, one of the things that I've found through the years is teams can come up with language, and teams often have kind of an orientation toward by age or by culture, whatever, to what that language is going to be. One of the things I'm going to encourage this leadership team to do is, rather than sit down and wonder about it, sit down and brainstorm about it. This is how this growth occurs. This is how learning occurs, right? And so I can give you ideas. You're around somebody, you want to engage in a conversation. What do you want to talk? There's a bunch of things you can start that conversation with. If it's somebody who's owns the car operation that's working on your car, you just start talking to them. You just get to know them. You don't present. That's some of the, again, I'm going to emphasize this. We put so much pressure on ourselves and our new people by getting them to think, or letting them think they're going to be making a presentation anytime soon. They're not. We don't want them making presentations. They stink, right? They don't know how to do it, how to answer any questions, any of those kinds of things. And that's why I say, first, you've got to warn them that if they start doing that, they're going to blow it up. And two, that we're going to help them. I'm the presenter that goes. Now, if you got a leadership team that goes, I don't know how to talk to somebody, stand at the gas pump. I engaged a woman in a conversation in a gas station here a couple of weeks ago, and she was half my age, actually less than that. She's probably in her late 20s, pretty sharp. And I go, this is going to sound strange and reflection from somebody who's a lot older than you, but when I was your age, I was paying 15 cents a gallon as opposed to $6.50. And we started a conversation, and it goes there. I said, I'm visiting here. We had land here, still do. We're finishing some of that stuff up. Are you from this area? You're born and raised in this area? And it's just a natural conversation. And I just go around all day, when I'm amongst people doing that. If I'm standing in a line, I engage people around me. You know, one of my opening lines that people are in front of me of a long line is I'll go, could you hurry up? And they got 20 people in front of them. And they turn around and I'm smiling at them. I said, what's taking you so long? You know, and we laugh and then we start talking. I'm taking some of the family to Disneyland the end of next week. And I'm going to talk to 100 people at least in a personal connection conversation. It's easy to talk to somebody. Are you from this area? Are you visiting from outside? You know, because Disneyland gets people from all over. What's your favorite part of this? How old are your children? You know, just how long you staying? I mean, there's so many things to talk about. Some don't give you much, hardly give you the time of day. Don't worry about it. Let it go. I mean, just look and enjoy the conversation. I'm not really looking for prospects for my base shop, right? I'm looking for prospects for people that can do 10 million points and then do 100 million points and then do 1 billion points. That's my prospect pool in this company. Do you understand? And so that's where most of my attention goes, doing what we're doing right now. Oh, I can spend time with new people and I can raise them from the ground up. That's crazy. I've got 97,000 licenses. We override. It's probably 100,000 now. And we've got to keep going. I need to develop major leadership. People play in the big leagues in our industry, giants of the industry. That's my number one task in the business. And so that's where most of my time is spent. And people ask me, how do I get more of your time? Get bigger. Get bigger. But don't be helpless. When I figured out we weren't helping our people make contact and that it was blowing up our numbers, keeping us from growing, I sat down that night and did my own invitation script. I figured it out. Then we worked on it, and I got it with some guys, and we worked on it a little more, and there were some suggestions, and we incorporated that. And then we added a feature to it where we reinforced, you know, that not to worry about the meeting. We weren't chasing them around. Nobody's asking them for money, that kind of thing. But next thing you know, we had this script that we loved. It set appointments and invited people. And it sold a dream, and it crusaded, and it works from there. We have people on this call that have been in this business more than a decade. We have other people that have been in years, and you're good. You're good with the language. Do it. You want answers? Do it. Sit and become wordsmiths and do this. This is how I learned. I can hand it to you and you drift. But when you work it out, you kind of use your own language. And so, yeah, I'm willing, after you've done the work, to work with you on, do I think that needs tweaking? What was it? I was talking with somebody. And basically, they said something in the script. I said, you don't want to say that. You just don't want to say that. Builds the wrong thing in their mind, lets them off the hook. Don't do that. Take it out. I'm willing to help that, but I want you to help yourselves. What was it, that line from Jerry Maguire, Cuba Gooding Jr. and his character? Help me, help you. You know, they were going back and forth, right? Well, help me, help you. Step up. Don't sit there like little birds waiting to get fed by mama, right? I don't raise big, strong leaders by doing it all for you. You understand? Take initiative, take leadership, meet, work it out, get this stuff. And then I'll give you feedback. Something to work with. Yeah. And so back to this. So the language of connecting with people is just questions. If they act like they don't want to answer questions, stop asking them questions. I mean, I was going to say I'm not deep, you guys. I'm not a complicated. I'm like, how would I massage them psychologically and spiritually and emotionally to want to talk to me right now? Well, I don't worry about that shit at all. I just stopped talking to him because there's the next 8 billion people lined up behind him that I'm going to go say hi to, right? And some of those will want to talk to me. And I'm not trying to be a pain in the butt, someone's butt, right? It's weird. It's just like I warned you. I said, as a man, you guys, now some of you have less to worry about, people, as homely as Edward and Brett and myself, we have less to worry about it. Gene, I'd throw you in that category too. But the good looking guys like Mig and stuff, they've got to be careful, right? Because women think they're hitting on them, right? Or it's even creepier if they think someone like us hitting on them. And so I never stand close to somebody, a woman, when I'm talking to her. I don't invade her space. Don't get anywhere near it. I mention my wife right somewhere in the beginning, work that into the conversation. It's easier for me because I'm a grandpa person now. I'm a friendly grandpa person. But when I was 30 or 32, that kind of thing, Cindy said I was handsome back then. I know it's hard to picture. It's true. Anyway, and so the reality is I had to be careful. I had to learn how not to get him and make him feel weird. And I was respectful. And again, from 28 on, I was married. From before then, I probably was interested, but after that, I wasn't. And I worked that into the conversation, and then I ask about their life, and what's your family like? Do you have family yet? And next thing I'm talking, how'd you meet your husband? And, and how many children you have? What are they doing? And how old are they? And, and just share some of those thoughts, some things in common. Ours are 6 and 4 or whatever. And you've made a connection. You're having a friendly, non-threatening conversation. And so I found it a little bit easier for a man to prospect a man. A woman can prospect anybody, right? But the man with the opposite you have to be respectful and a little bit careful, But this is not rocket science. It's common sense. Be yourself. Be friendly, and don't get a hernia trying to talk to somebody. Just keep being friendly. The easiest thing for me is people, how do you get the number? I said, I've enjoyed this conversation. Now, this is where typically, right? I think I told the story when we were in our retreat. A very, very pretty young woman came in with 2 young children into where my son-in-law and I were having lunch. And we nodded to her and looked away. I wasn't going to stare at her, right? And she sat down at a table close to us. And then she initiated a conversation. She's a confident person, happy person. And she noticed the golf logo on our shirt. She says, do you guys play golf? I said, we both do. But it was a logo for Augusta National. I said, have you been to that tournament? We said, no, we kind of avoid the tournament. We play there. We have members that are friends, and we play there. They said, oh, that's great. And that's where I mentioned, she said, my husband's, grandfather won the Masters. And then we were all ears and we started talking anyhow, I said, you know what? Would you do me a favor? Does your husband play? I'd love to talk to him about his grandfather and being around the game at that level, growing up. And she said, yeah. And I just opened a window. I said, would you put your husband's name and number in there? Not hers, her husband's name and number. I wouldn't want, as a husband, to think that I was asking for his wife's or someone asking for my wife's number. Not going to happen, right? And so that's how we did. We invited a guy, we sat down, we talked about that stuff, went and played around, had him over for dinner, recruited him. Okay? Pure and simple. This is how you keep your pace of 2 to 3 personal recruits a month. By connecting with people. Just connecting with people. I don't go around recruiting people. I don't go around presenting to people. I go around connecting to people. Then with some follow-up and some conversation. Well, how do you follow it up? I send them a text. I really enjoyed meeting you. I sent a text to her husband. We met your wife at the bagel shop, told me your grandfather was so-and-so, and we'd love to talk to you about that. Both my son-in-law and I are golfers, and let's connect. And we did. And I said, this is my number. Be looking for my call. I sent him my contact information. He put me on the phone, recognized it, said hi, and we started a relationship. But I didn't go, you want to join? You seem like somebody who's a winner. You ever thought about being an entrepreneur and getting rich? Right? I hate that stuff. Right? And because it doesn't work, it's creepy. And you might as well just get a hammer and hit yourself in the head with it. Right? At least you know where their pain's coming from. And so don't do it that way. Just be sociable. It's called being nice. And you end up building a list. Like I said, my exact number, I'll turn to it. The exact number I have right now on my prospect list that I have notes on, that I connected with and notes and communicated with, is 2,735 people. So I could build a pretty good company from that, starting from scratch today. Now, how would I talk to them? I'd take the top first 50 I wanted to talk to. I'd scan the entire group, pick 50 of them, and then I'd make contact, drop a text to all of them, say, I'm going to be calling you, answer your phone when you see my number. And I'd start talking to them. Starting to start up, got good things going on. I want to talk to you about it. You may or may not be interested. That's not worrying me. I just want you to hear about it. And because I have this friendly relationship, people sit down and listen. And then they tell you whether they're one, interested, two, not. Right? Then the next 50. But I'd fill the pipeline. Last time I did this in earnest was back pre-2008, 2007, moved to a new area. My son-in-law and I just went out and we just met people all over the community, wandering around, checking out stuff we wanted to check out, stores we wanted to check out, sporting goods stores we wanted to check out, gun stores we wanted to check out, golf stuff, cars, and just meeting people. Build a list, 250 names or so, pulled the trigger, recruited the first wave of 30, recruited 400 people over the next 12 months, and we were back in the game. And licensed 52% of them. And this is how you do it. This is how you do it. Anyway, so there you go. All right, Stephanie, you provide the rhythm. He's not going to get a lot of that from me. So, not my strength. I had a great 3-point shot, though. All right.
I've got 2 more questions, Rich, if you're
that
ready.
question was answered clearly. Sit down and do that work yourself. And then let me give you feedback. I'm not here to do it for you. I'm here to help you do it. That makes sense? Because that's how we build strength. I didn't get all these leaders by accident by doing it for people. Now, let me carry you to your next prospect. I'll talk to him, and I'll carry you to the next prospect. That's not going to happen. Not at this level. Okay, Hannah, give me another one.
All right, next question. How do you inspire and motivate your base shop to consistently recruit and grow their teams?
Okay, now that comes back to the intangibles. And what do I mean by that? When we had our retreat, I asked you to do your top 10 dreams. I asked you to do your top 10 reasons. If people are plugged into that and stay plugged into it, and you create an environment, because understand, we recruit to an environment. We inspire within an environment. Look, if you are sitting in a freezer, right? Obviously, that's at risk. Ultimately, hypothermia would become a problem. because your core body temperature would start to go down. I use that as an analogy. I got to get you out of the freezer, get you into warmer air, put a blanket around you, bring your core back up, all right, put you in a warm setting, and you're going to be fine. We as leaders are responsible for the environment within our organization. When I talk to you, about those 8 things that I think are critical to become an effective leader and a happy person, which were integrity, gratitude, optimism, giving, forgiving, patience, humility. But the 8th one was energy. Energy. I can have those previous 7, and that's wonderful and noble, but it doesn't mean you're going to build a great organization. You got to bring those things and energy. Just like I bring energy to these calls. You got to bring energy. If we don't have the sun in the sky, we don't have energy. We don't have oil. We don't have coal. We don't have wood. We don't have nothing. We don't have wind. And of course, the actual rays being their own power. And, I've gotten so in touch with this, with building a solar and wind-based power system at our ranch. But also now being a little bit of a farmer, hobbyist farmer. I have farm, but I'm watching things grow, and I kind of marvel over it all. And without the sun, nothing grows. If it's in the shade, it dies. And so if your team's in the shade, you're having all these motivational problems. Pure and simple. If it's you and one other person, you got to bring energy to that relationship. Now, it'd be a good idea if you get out and connect and build a list and keep building a list and get a few more people. There's an old saying, safety in numbers, or there's power in numbers. Both those things are true, but there's energy in numbers as you start to build it. But it's a chicken or the egg thing. You start with the egg, it's not, right? It's just you. And then there's another person, that's 2. Then another, that's 3. But the environment you have your people in comes from you and your leadership. You don't need to be oingo boingo. I'm not talking about being Ed Milet on the stage, Guy's an animal that way. All right? I'm not that way. I had to teach myself to be outgoing. I'm not naturally outgoing. I'm not feeling inclined to it. There are plenty of days where I don't want to talk to nobody. I have to fight that. Hear me. Every day, I fight my inclination to be very comfortable just by myself. Every day. Brett, you relating to that? Every day I fight that. How do I fight it? I have my dreams. Where do I have them? I have them written down. I have my top 10 reasons. I have them written down. I have my affirmations. I have them written down. I read them. I read them in the morning. I read them at night. If I start to drift in the afternoon, feel a little low air energy, I read that stuff again and I pump myself up. This is real. The techniques I'm describing here are real. I've said to you, you either program or you're going to get programmed. And mediocrity is going to program you. And your identity is going to stay small. And you're going to seek comfort and all this stuff we started talking about at the beginning. And so you got to push the edge of the envelope. That's our job as entrepreneurs. So your team's flat, it's because they're dream flat. They're crusade flat. And that's why they're low energy. And that's why they're not talking to people. And that's why they're not going out in the field. And that's why they're not closing sales. And that's why they're not recruiting. It's work. This is our work. Now, look, if you lay cement, that's your work, right? You order cement trucks. You're there. You put the frame. You put the steel in there, the rebar. Now you're pouring it. You're finishing it. It's hard work. It's heavy. All this stuff. That's what you do. That's your work. You get there, you show up, you work 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day doing it. That's your work. Your work is talking to people with energy, selling a dream, talking about how much what we do makes a difference in people's lives, and encouraging them and praising them when they start to do well, and doing recognition when they start to really step up. That's the three languages. I shared this with you, of course, when we were together, but trust me, I do not expect to tell you once and then you got it. I expect to tell you again and again and again and again. And one of the keys to my success is I don't weary of repetition. It doesn't bother me you didn't get it the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, because I'm going to get you on the sixth time. I'm going to get you on the seventh time. I'm going to repeat the basics and repeat the basics and repeat the basics. Do a freaking prospect list, get a new person, try and get it over 100. Every time. Give them the memory jogger, get with them and help them. Sell them the dream of what can happen with this. Also sell them on how much difference they're going to make in their lives. Just because they wrote a name down. Be passionate about it because it's real. Then you got to help them make contact, or you're just never going to get the plane off the ground. You know, an aircraft, one of the reasons the runways are long is the aircraft has to get to a certain speed before aerodynamics, the physics, take over, and it lifts off the ground. If you don't get above that speed, it never flies. It has the potential to fly, but it doesn't fly. You got to get a certain level of energy into people. And if you just go, come on, let's win, go do it. You know, why are you here? What would be worth fighting for? You know, how much does it matter to you that your family is in a safer place? How much does it matter to you to get out of debt and not to have that hanging over you like a freaking axe over your head all the time? How much do you want control? How much do you want to drive your income? How much do you want to just feel better about your life, like it's going somewhere? How much do you want other people that are jerks not controlling you anymore, ending that season in your life forever? You know, and whatever the dreams are. Now, some people dream die anyway because of confidence problems or whatever. Yeah, we ain't saving everybody, but we're talking about the people that are sticking around. You know, I remember taking Penny Oy's team in once on a retreat, and they were producing well, but they were dream flat. They believed in what they did, and they were just doing transaction after transaction. It didn't have magic. And I spent most of that retreat making them sell the dream to each other. Making the list, practice talking about it. Just start getting the feeling, standing up in front of the room. Sell me a dream, sell me a dream, sell me a dream. Sell the group the dream. And as they started to warm up over those couple of days, it was just so much fun. You need some trainings like that, some workshops like that. And dreams are different than reasons. Reasons are usually character-based. Some of them are spiritual, family-oriented. This is what we're fighting for. But dreams and reasons are tied together. But reasons, you know, kind of a deeper kind of definition. And the dreams are, hey, I want a car that runs. I don't like getting in my car and turning it goes start, start, start. You know, I've been there. You know, I like having to worry about stuff. People go, you know, you went to the grocery store. What did you spend the last time you were at the grocery store? I don't know. It's not something I have to think about. I'll go to Cindy. How much do we spend on our grandchildren sending them to private school? She says, I'm not sure. I said, you're more sure than I am. You're blowing smoke. I'm not bothered by whatever the amount is. I'm just curious what it is. Well, it's $48,000 a year for Cora and Shelby. And it's this much for Madison's, tutor and some of this other stuff. And we spend $900 a month on her dance training, right? So I got a dancer and my granddaughter, you know, and it's just this kind of thing, you know, but this one likes the public system here. It's pretty high end, you know, and so she's going to go and she has friends there. And so that's great. We're going to keep an eye on it. And it's just this kind of stuff. We don't have to worry about any of that stuff. How great would it be if you didn't have to worry about that stuff? You could help these people you love so much, and you don't even have to consider that from an economic standpoint. I just wired $1,216,000 to an escrow account for my oldest son and my daughter-in-law for a new house they're buying in Utah. They don't have to pay me back. They're gonna put some money in on it, but I say stay in your house that you've got now because they're gonna remodel this, and we're gonna pay for the remodel. And when it's just exactly where they want it to be 6 months or 8 months from now, they can move into it and put their other house in the market. What makes that possible? Our net worth, right? That we can just, and they're grateful, and they are, anyway, it's a wonderful thing. And you guys think bigger, help your team think bigger, but they got to start dreaming. Because understand, just dreaming about paying off your credit cards is thinking bigger if your credit cards have had a balance on it for years. That's a bigger thought than you had. That's what it was for me with my $1,000 balance on that Visa card. What are the 3 languages? Language of helping people. Help. Pop son who is driven by, I want to help people, I want to help people, I want to help people, I want to help people. All right, everything's about helping people. Awesome. Next, language of better life. What are the dreams? What are the dreams? What are the dreams? What are the dreams? This is not something you do once with people. It's something you do all the time. You don't feed your baby once. You keep feeding them. This is stuff they got to eat every day. That's why I want them to put theirs in writing. I want them to read it a couple of times a day. Let's keep those things out there. Let's keep that dream board up. Amway used to teach people to put pictures up, the things they want, the house, the car, all that stuff. I was never super motivated by that, but there were things about travel, about making memories with the family, about this marriage. I put a picture up of a family. When I started working out, getting serious about working out, I put pictures up of guys that had worked out a while. And I said, that's where I'm going. All right. I was selling myself a dream of what that would be like. But I had it in writing too. What's it going to feel like to have that level of conditioning, to feel that good about things, about waking up with energy, driving the whole day with energy, being able to do things. And that was all the way back when I was playing tennis and competing in college and all that stuff. I had that stuff up. You need to do it too. This is basics. This is like general ed of self-improvement. You got to have it in writing. You got to be reading it to yourself. And you got to do it. Remember, I said to you in the retreat, not only do I want you to listen for your own improvement, you got to listen in terms of translating this to the team. So, Hannah, I don't want you to let a week go by before the leaders have worked out language on some things. What is your one-on-one recruiting presentation? Build it, right? You want to draw from something Jamie's done or somebody else has done? Great. But make it your own. What is your BPM? What is your IUL presentation? Penny came to me in her time, will you help me this and this and this? I said, no, you do it. And then I'll give you feedback. I'm working with Jeremy one-on-one right now on his written plan. Right? And so I've gone through the parameters. We're going to spend just a little bit of time this afternoon. And then he's got to do it. He's got to do it. And then he brings it back. I expect you to do it. Here's a principle, you guys. I got legs that are, 23 generations deep, right? All this kind of stuff. Let's say a 6th generation SMD came to me and asked me a question. I said, did you ask so-and-so your upline? Yeah, they didn't know. Did you ask the 4th generation person? No. Ask them. Make sure your upline's on the call when you ask. If that person doesn't know, call the next one. Call the 3rd generation guy. That one doesn't know, call the 2nd generation guy. That doesn't know, call the first one. Then if they don't know, it's me. and we're going to do a call where all of you will be on the call, and I will solve at least that question, that problem, that understanding for all of you, so I don't have to keep doing. If I answer for him what I got to answer when the fifth generation and the fourth generation, I'm not going to do it 6 or 7 or 8 times. I'm going to sit you all down and make sure you understand what's going on. Now you got it, run with it. You are all adults, right? If you're wearing a diaper, it's not because you're young. It's because you're old, right? You're on the other end of the spectrum. So I ain't changing your diaper, right? Like you do for little ones, right? You're going to do this. I'm going to keep expecting it. You're going to go through the process. You're going to grow. You're going to understand. You're going to become wiser in the process, and you'll feel more confident about the implementation because you did it. You own your stuff, and it works. What's the next question? You had one more.
Darlene, you want to ask a question?
Yes. Okay, so our next question is the system that worked for you, Rich, for licensing, most effective strategy to get your people licensed fast.
Okay. A really good question. One of my favorite ones to answer, by the way. I'm turning to my basic notes that I have used for decades on this process, right? I was working with a person, he's $1 million earner. I barely knew him. His name's Tyson Peterson. Most of you never heard of him. I know I've met Tyson as a boy, a little boy. I know his dad. This is Bryce Peterson. There's Tyson making 1.1 million, strongly out of personal production. And I'm walking him through how to become a builder. And so I said to him, okay, in relation to licensing, right? I always had this really high percentage of licensing. Even in Williams, which was a great licensing organization, A.L. Williams, we were always 1 or 2 in that spot in percentage of licensing. And recruit to license ratio is what I'm talking about. It's one of the metrics that's such a big deal. There are certain metrics that are of gigantic importance. Your recruit to license ratio is one of those. But your production per license is one of those. Those are just 2 gigantic things. Obviously, your recruiting numbers lead into all of that. So, but let's talk about this. You've got a new associate. Someone's done an AMA. And the number one thing you don't want to do is lose them. You lose them, nobody gets licensed, right, Darlene? They're gone, right? No one's taking a test by accident, right? All of this has to be led. And so the first piece of the equation, and it's interesting because it's the same first piece of the equation when it comes to developing leaders. And I remember I asked Tyson, why do you want to develop a leader? What's the first thing you got to do to consistently develop a leader? And he had a bunch of good answers, but none were the one I was looking at. And I did this to you guys when we were at our retreat. Number one factor in licensing and retention is communication to the people. If you're not talking to them, they die. Talking is feeding. You hear me? Talking is feeding. You'll hear me talk about this 1,000 times. I'll use the umbilical cord relationship again and again and again, like I did with you in a retreat. Mama's breathing for the fetus. Mama's eating for the fetus. The blood brings oxygen to the fetus, to this fetus's cells, so they can continue to grow. It brings nourishment to the cells, so they can continue to grow. And the fetus can turn into a baby until it's full term and can be born and breathe on its own and eat on its own and all these magical things about the creation of life. But at no point can you stop feeding the fetus and have that work out. At no point can you stop feeding the infant and have that work out. There's no, we'll just stuff them full of milk. We'll put 2 gallons in them and they'll be good for 3 or 4 days. It's not how it works. It's regular feeding. Mom knows because she's getting up in the middle of the night to do it if she's breastfeeding. Right? I would get the baby and bring it to Cindy. Cindy and I were talking about that, laying in bed at 5 this morning. And she said, some of my fondest memories were of watching you sleep while I sat in the rocker in our bedroom and breastfed one of our children. She says, that was my dream. You know, to have a family, to do what we were doing together, to love each other the way we did, and now have children to love. Magic. All right. And I said the other thing the umbilical cord of the blood does is it takes away waste when it returns. So mom's giving oxygen and nourishment and taking away waste. All right, we're all moms in that context. We recruit somebody, we're their mama, right? We've got to communicate to them. We've got to bandage their hurts. We've got to warn them, and we got to protect them. All right, we're not going to put the baby up on the counter 5 feet off the ground when it's just learning to crawl, because they don't fly. All right, and so you do these basic things, and it's communication. So your number one skill in the business is communication and having a communication habit. And what are you communicating? Well, this comes as a surprise. How awesome what we're doing for people is. I got all these dreams to have. And EPRing them as they move forward. EPR them to get them to move forward. Praise and recognize them as they do move forward. Those three languages, right? The language of helping people, the language of better life, and the language of building people. EPR is the language of building people. Those three languages are what you're communicating, along with some focus. You're going to do some instruction. You're going to answer questions. You're going to, I read this on the internet and it hurt my feelings. Is this really true? And you handle that stuff, all of that stuff. But remember, you warn them. You warn them about the internet. You warn them about what friends and family can do to you. You know, you show them stuff. Remember I talked about show them Apple sucks, show them Samsung sucks, show them Walmart sucks, show them McDonald's sucks, show them whatever. You know, everybody, everything and everybody has negative things written about them. And understand that's part of the deal. You don't get to hide in your closet and suck your thumb and go to the big leagues. Build $100,000, $200,000, $500,000, $1 million a year income. You're going to have to learn to compete, develop some mental toughness, a little bit thicker skin, and understand everybody's not going to give you a standing ovation no matter who you are. The ultimate example for that is, for me, is they crucified Christ, and they led a perfect life. So, whatever, which is not an indictment of anybody back then. That was thousands of years. I'm not talking about that stuff. All I measure is how people treat each other today. I'm simply saying leaders from every faith have been persecuted and martyred, all right? Because they're standing for something. And you have people that don't want you standing for stuff. When you stand up for stuff, you're going to take some heat. Welcome to the real life. Welcome to the party. So, communication, communication, communication. If you double and triple your communication habit, for some of you that's not enough. If you 5x or 7x or 10x your communication habit, you're going to go a long way. Now you say, well, I call them, they don't answer. When you talk to them, tell them to answer the phone. In other words, I commit a new recruit in the follow-up interview to answer their freaking phone when we call. We're trying to help you build a new life, a business, a changed world, right? Happier, better, safer, out of debt, all this stuff, in control. Answer your phone. We can't help you do that if we aren't talking. So don't ghost us. Now, understand you might be involved in something. Hey, I called that young man I talked about. Well, he's in his 30s now. Called that guy, said I mentor from church. And he texted me back, said, I'm in a board meeting with my company. I'll call you as soon as I get out. And he did. Followed right up. You know, and he said something to me. He says, Rich, I value your opinion more than anybody I know in relation to business and where he was headed. I said, yeah, I think Megan probably is number one there. I'm very comfortable being number two in that category. All right. His wife and 3 sons. Okay. Back to licensing. Constant communication. You have a new associate, constant communication, speaking the 3 languages. You're trying to get a person to do 3 things. Anybody have any idea what those 3 things are? You know, you're going to be afraid to answer. But there are 3 things you're going to do. 1, I want them to get licensed. Overwhelming priority. Let's get your butt licensed. Let's get it licensed in as fast and as short a period of time as we can. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Let's put it in our rearview mirror. Let's get it done. I know it's boring. I'm not done. Blah, 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 blah. Doesn't even make sense of it. Don't worry about it. Get it done. It's a requirement. We don't have an option. We can't start paying you till you get licensed. So don't procrastinate payday. Get licensed. Okay? It's the second thing we want them to do. They're going to do a prospect list. That was up in the recruiting flow, but they're doing a list. And so that's happening right away. This is happening simultaneously. Now, what do we do in that list? We're going to identify top 25 and we're going to talk to them. So we're looking to do 2 things with that. Get people to hear the company story, try and recruit them, and turn them into clients. So those are the 3 things. Get licensed. We'll start we want to fill that pipeline behind you, right? With people that are also working on getting their license. And then we're also going to start turning people into clients. Those 3 things. That's what we do. So you get licensed, we can pay you for the 3rd one. All right, the cruise account for you right from the beginning. But you got to have a license before you can sign an app, get compensation, all of that stuff. So, I got a new person. I'm a maniac communicator, son of a dream, crusading, EPRing. I've also got to get you into license prep. We got license prep. I got to get you signed up where you're doing your 11 hours in the state of California or whatever it is where you're at. And I'm going to start getting you ready for the test. So we sign you up. Understand, when we do, for me, the words recruit and license are not 3 words. They're 1 word. It's a compound word, recruit and license. It's 1 motion, backswing, downswing, 1 motion. But I've got to nourish you. I've got to take negatives away. I got to bring oxygen to you. And that'll keep moving. Now you pass the test. You receive the test, you pass the test, and you get appointed. I'm monitoring this. I'm communicating with you during all of this. I'm making sure you're coming to meetings and you're on part of stuff and we're doing the coaching and what mentoring I can do. And my next overwhelming priority is make sure you make $1,000 and become a net license. So I don't recruit you to do anything but license and net license you and to help you start building a team. All this stuff takes constant encouragement, constant communication, constant dream selling. Yes, yes, and yes. We'll field train. You'll see it in real life. That's fun. I love going out with people and building relationships, building another master copy, because I was very solid in the field. I make sure we got license prep. All your pre-license stuff is handled. Your license prep, go. I commit you to a deadline in the follow-up interview. Be licensed in 2 weeks. That's just my standard. I want you licensed in 2 weeks. We have people get licensed in 3 days. We have people that license in 4 days. 2 weeks is the maximum. So let's talk about how that's going to happen. And now I'm following up and monitoring, trying to get that going. Now, if you what makes or breaks you is that this stuff is like fascinating, those 11 hours, right? You're already doomed. It's not particularly fascinating, right? There's a lot of stuff that's fascinating. Getting out of debt's fascinating. Having $100,000 in savings is pretty fascinating. But this stuff, not so much. But I got good news. It'll be behind you in a day if you get after it. Challenge them to take a day off work and get all of it done. Let's go. Let's get in the queue for that test. Okay, now these days we'll do cram courses for passing the exam. Our pass rate is in the 90 percentile. If you're one of the ones they changed the test just before and it came a little weird and you didn't pass, no big deal. We just reapply and we're back in there in a week or so. And we have behind you. This is not Everest. Getting licensed, not Everest. And I committed them to get licensed and help 5 to 10 families. Remember that in retreat? I talked about that, right? You can't quit till you get licensed to help 5 to 10 families. That's the commitment you made. That's the commitment I'm going to try and hold you to. And I committed you for a reason. Let's make a difference in people's lives. Then you walk away, walk away. But you changed lives, just like Gordon DeLeon changed mine. And so licensing is a culture. Everybody's talking about it. Building a team is a culture. Everybody's talking about it. Doing the prospect list, 100 names, top 25, and qualifying, and what a qualified person is. Everybody's talking about it. It's in our classes. The follow-up interview is in our classes. How they support a BPM in our classes. Communication. In my plan, in my classes. I'm talking to you right now. This is communication. We stay on top of that. The sales process, same thing. Prospect list. Some people aren't interested in the opportunity, right? It's contact. Oh, here I remember what the guy tried to do. Somebody's telling me, he says, I asked them to break it into the two groups. We all did a prospect list party. The ones they think would be right for the opportunity, and the ones they think to be right for the client. I said, don't do that. They don't know that. I don't know it. In my own market. I thought for sure some people I was sitting with would jump at this and didn't, but they became clients. I thought they wouldn't possibly be interested in doing something on the side part-time, and they'd fall down all over themselves to join. You don't know. I just get in and tell the company's story and show them what we do. It's like a buffet. Some interested in this, some interested in that, right? I'm going to try and recruit you and sell you. Failing that, I'm going to try and sell you. Failing that, I want to get referrals so I can talk to other people about recruiting and selling them, right? And learn and getting licensed and doing it themselves. And it just perpetuates. We worked referrals. Prospect list are referrals. Wouldn't you want the list to be over 100? So, and you've got to repeat the basics. You notice I don't have a title for it. If I'm going to give it a title, I'd call it the machine. That's what my accountant called it. My CPA, he said to a guy that was helping me professionally on a qualified plan, my first one, way back in the 80s, he said he owns a money machine. That's what it looked like to my CPA. That's what you want it to look like to people you know.
15.
Thank you, Stephanie, for taking care of that. And so our reality is we're building a machine. So I just have always called it's the machine. Do it over and 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 over. Look, if I go, right, get in one of my internal combustion cars, and I turn the key and ignites, it's a battery, right, all this stuff, ignition system, fuel injection, it has all of it. Let's say, like the Ferrari's an 8-cylinder, right, twin turbocharged, plus the electric motors. But anyway, that engine, the pistons fire in the same order every time. There's the first one and the second one. But they fire in an order. If they get out of mistimed, it starts running rough. Right? It would warn me computer-wise of that well before it got too far down the road. Just got it serviced just for that. Bottom line, guys, is you run it over and over again. Like I say, if you want entertainment, go to a movie. If you want entertainment, listen to some music. This isn't about entertainment. It's about running a machine as tightly duplicated as you can possibly make it, over and over again. We recruit, right? That means we did a prospect list. We made contact in it, right? We did a presentation. We did a follow-up. We got to recruit. Now we got to recruit, right? We got to help them do the same thing, but they're no good at contact. We're going to help them make contact. They're no good at presenting. We're going to present for them until they get competent at doing both of those things. And then they're helping other people do it. And you got to communicate and communicate and communicate. You said, I get tired of talking. You guys, I talk so much some days, I feel like my tongue's swelling up. Talking, like I'm doing that with you now. And when I'm done with this, I've got to talk some more. And I'm hungry because all I've had is a food bar. I'm staying hydrated. But hunger pangs are not a bad thing. It means my body's using its reserves. So that's good news. So I choose to like the feeling, not be distressed by it. So, any other questions? I've got, 15 more minutes I've allotted to you. I love this team, and I am trying to get through.
Yep, I think there was one more question that was texted to me. Let's see. I had someone say, train us exactly how you would train your new base shop.
Okay. I am. I am. This is how I train the base shop. We did the dream selling exercise, and we talked about the top 10 reasons, and we started talking about the 3 languages and creating a warm environment and their responsibility. But one of the things I emphasized to people as they were coming on board, everybody on our team is a starter. There's nobody on the bench. Everybody's a starter. Now, you'll have people that you'll be matched up with that'll help you make contact, make presentation, all of that stuff. But you're a starter. All right? And so everybody plays. If we're doing a physical BPM, nobody's in an office. Nobody's out in the parking lot shooting the breeze with a couple of guys. Nobody's out front smoking cigarettes. None of that stuff happens. Back in the days when there was more smokers, we had a designated spot behind the building next to the dumpster for the smokers. And they said, well, what if it's raining? I said, get in the dumpster. Right? I'm not here to make you comfortable with your stinky habit. Right? Kill yourself in the back of the building, not in the front. And and you get these people that are waiting out front, they're like vultures. I once threatened to build a perch for people that were like waiting for the guests, didn't go pick them up, didn't meet them in a neutral site where they had the extra pressure that their friend does. I'm waiting over here at the Burger King. Don't leave me hanging. Right? We said, you never wait for him at the office. And the guy's already there. It's okay. Right? We did these little things psychologically that increased our percentages. And so we can go through some of that more detail, but I want you to get some of the language clear first. I want you to know what your one-on-one recruiting presentation is, what the invitation is, what the appointment setting thing is. They're very similar, but you can have a few differences, but not much. You don't need much. I want the basics there. I want you to have your wordsmithing pretty much handled. And then we're going to keep working on the tweaking this stuff until you have this super efficient system. My Ferrari's a good example because you got turbocharged engine, right? V8, big turbocharged engine. Turbocharging gives it more power. But the spooling up of the turbocharge takes a valuable half second or second, that kind of thing. Well, they added electric motors, made it a hybrid. Well, that gave it the quicks. That gave it the instant start that electric does. While the turbocharge is spooling up and kicks in, and now you got both. And it takes off like it's a scalded rabbit, or it's supposed to be a scalded cat, isn't it? Anyway, it just goes, right? It scares you how fast it is. And when the machine's done right, everybody knows their role. So I'll use another example. What is this on here? Okay. And you see, if you listen to me on podcast, you heard me tell the story. I come into the BPM room. I'm always in there early. I sit by myself in isolation and prepare myself mentally and emotionally for every BPM. How do I do that? I run the entire meeting through my mind. I don't say every word, but I'll take 15, 20, sometimes a half hour. Just get my head in the game. I've been doing follow-up interviews all day, making calls. I clear my mind. I've got a group I'm going to be speaking to here. Calm yourself, center yourself in humility, gratitude, optimism, upbeat, but not over the top, not looking to blow people away. Okay, I'm ready. I come out. I'm in the game. I come into the room. They're gathering in there. And I've got a guy, and he's leaning against the wall. Just leaning against the wall, like this. His name was Jim. I come up to him. He's an engineer at Lockheed, leaning against the wall. I said, Jim, I just want you to know I appreciate what a team player you are. He goes, what? I said, I appreciate what a team player you are, but I need to tell you, we got that fixed. He goes, what are you talking about? What do you got fixed? I said, the wall. It stands up by itself now. And here you are holding it up. That's a team player right there. I'm thankful for you. I love your attitude. You know, I love having you on the team. It's awesome. You're over here sacrificing like that. But you don't need to do it. I don't need to hold up the wall anymore. Here, here. I pulled him away from the wall. See? Told you we got it fixed. And he laughs a little bit. He says, well, it was a rough day at work. I said, Jim, I don't care. I don't care you had a rough day at work. We can care afterwards, after the meeting, after we've done everything we're supposed to be doing here, right? My job is not to care that you had a rough day at work right now. Right? I have a job to do, and so do you. Your job is to contribute to the environment that new people are coming in to see, and that everybody on the team's hoping will be there when they bring their guests. So you don't have a guest, you're circulating, saying hi to everybody. What if you're here early? Say hi to the same 10 people again. You know, you're contributing upbeat. You're not leaning against the wall going, wow, it was a rough day. Rough day. Not interested, right? You're a starter. Be a team player. I know it's harder to be a team player when you're tired, but that's when you're really tested, right? I've been grinding through people all day today. Started early. Finished late. We're going to go late tonight, do the meeting after the meeting. I'm sure I'll have a couple of follow-up interviews right after the meeting. Then I'll pack it in, head home, grab something to eat, hit the sack, and get in here tomorrow morning, do the same thing. But I'm going to bring energy. I need you to do that. I know you're an engineer, and I'm talking a little bit of a foreign language to you, but that's where I used to be. Now get out there and start saying hi to everybody. He said, okay, and he did. It's always my job to supervise the whole thing, to make sure people are bringing their game. You may not have the A game every day, but dang it, bring your B game, will you? Show up and play. Everybody is what? Everybody's a starter.
Want to go through the list too?
Yeah, we should be done here in 7 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah, you're right. It's okay. 7 minutes is accurate. So that's good. Roderick, I appreciate your attitude. I'm watching people as you go. Roderick's nodding and participating. He's laughing right now. It's a great world-class smile. And it's an awesome beard, which I'm envious that he has and I can't grow. Right? I still like I'm 14 years old with my beard. It's just ridiculous. So I'm not a particularly hairy person, but my wife loves me anyway.
Hey, sir, I just got to tell you, sir, you remind me of a general and an admiral I once knew. I love your attitude. It's great.
I appreciate that, Roderick. Anyway, that's the night. I'll take that as a compliment, unless you tell me I hated that guy. I had an experience in the front row of an event we were doing once, where I had 2 leaders. We were a leg, consecutive, 4 deep, sitting together. They're all leaders and accomplished. And we were speaking, and one of them, very nice guy, said, "You remind me of my dad. I love my dad." And then went to the next guy, and that's what the first guy says, "Pass it down." He says, and that guy decided to write something on it too, right? "You remind me of a teacher I had, a coach I had that I really liked, and I really appreciate it. Thanks, Rich." The next guy wrote, "You remind me of my dad. I hate my dad." He hands it to me, and I lost it like this, like it's right now. And our upline was speaking, right? And we're all falling down in the front row, the 4 of us, like 4 idiots. And this is not what he was looking for, any more than I would have been looking for it. But I couldn't stop. It's just perfect. The key to good comedy is timing, you guys. And the timing was perfect. Anyway, thank you, Roderick. That was a very kind and generous thing you just said. I appreciate it. All right, we'll talk more about your service. I'd be interested in hearing your story. Cool. Okay. I think we did it. We stand at 7 minutes. I still got 4 minutes by my watch. Is there anything anyone to ask? I promise to answer it in 4 minutes. What is the meaning of life? Okay. That might take a little more than 4 minutes. I'll get started on it, though. Anybody have a question? Darlene, retired. Hannah's. Okay, go ahead. Edward, you have a question?
Yes. Hope it's not too rude. Did you ever imagine yourself being in this position when you first started?
I don't know the ever do. It's interesting. I'll answer that the way Sam Walton answered it. They asked him. At this point, he's worth $28 billion. Biggest retail system in the world. He owns, owning Walmart. And they asked him, "Did you ever see yourself being there, being a billionaire, all this kind of stuff?" People ask me whatever the same kind of questions. I go, "No. I just kept showing up every day." And that's what he said. I just kind of solved the next challenge and climbed the next hill, and then did that and got a little bit better at it. And we learned some lessons and implemented things and got the system running better and better and better. And I think I visualized myself getting to SMD. And I started visualizing EMD and visualizing CEO and so forth. Right? I built on that. But it wasn't like I say, I'm going to be on the top of that mountain. Now, I did do some things like the first major convention I went to that Williams did in the early 80s in Las Vegas. I talked my way past security and said, "I'm just going to stand right here on the stage." And I visualized all the people that were in that room as if they were in my hierarchy. Now, imagine how I feel. I'm going to go up to Raj's event with 13,000 plus people. I override all those people. I'm then going to go to Las Vegas. We're going to have however many we have there. And I override all of them. All of that came true. But as I stood up there 40 plus years ago, at least I started the effort to visualize. Right? It probably had more of an impact than I thought, but it wasn't like I stood up there and went, "I see it. I see it. The heavens have parted, and the light shines upon me," right? And I hear the angels sing. I was just like, crap, this is a lot of people. I wonder, man, I hope we can get something going here. But that's how it started. My first team meeting, I'm an associate, right? We had 17 recruits, 9 showed up in our first team meeting. And I talked about being the #1 base shop in the company. That was on the moon for me from what they're doing. Base shop, remember, I'd recruited into a base shop. They recruited 595 people that month. That's nuts. And I'm like, got guys that don't know what base shop means. And we started from there. But at least I dared say it. Did I believe it yet? No. But you start daring to think what might be possible, and your life begins to change. So that's why, when I do my talk, did podcasts on this, covered it all the time. My 5 things, when people ask me, is there one thing that's the key? It was strength of character, being trustworthy, my will to win. I had burning desire not to be average and ordinary. Cindy and her belief in me and support, and our joint belief in what we do, and we grew together. The 4th one was mentorship, got me there, right? Mentorship just straightened the line, kept me from wandering off into paths that were a waste of time, kept me on target, that kind of thing. And then I took over a lot of my own mentorship with clearly defined goals and a written plan. And so I was mentoring myself twice, 3 times a day, reading it, reviewing it, on target, keeping my numbers up in front of me. That's why I love Bob Sandhu, which I've had a chance to start working with him, that he's now moving forward. Just like I had a conversation with Johnny here a couple of days ago, marrying him. He's on it. He's just about at a 20 million a month pace, 20 million a year pace, in terms of production. And it keeps driving it. And I just love it. I love it. We're on target. They have their plans. They have their written goals. They have their written plan. They have their affirmations. They know what they're fighting for. They're dreaming. We dream big together. We go off in our dreams. When I'm at that level, we go off in our dreams all the time. I'm talking to Raja last time. I said, here's what it's going to feel like to be a billionaire, Raja. Here's what it's going to feel like. And it's just all this stuff. You're dreaming together, brainstorming together. But that 5th one, the clearly defined goals, written plan, is such a huge thing. Otherwise, drift and procrastination will dominate your career. Got to program yourself every day. And when it gets stale, you upgrade your programming. You sit down, clear time, and rewrite. I'm about to do that now with my current one. I was just thinking about that, and I think I'm going to take some of that time when we're at Disneyland, where I'll stay back in the room. I'll spend the whole day working on my plan. Jeremy, you and I are on for 4 o'clock, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, everybody, I'm done. I got somebody else is waiting for me to talk to.
Thank you, Rich. Man, we so appreciate this